Well, here's a car that everybody knows. I think when you mention the word Fiat, this is probably the first thing that people think of. That's the Cinquecento. This is the Fiat 124 Spider. It was the car that was manufactured for 19 years, from 1966 to 1985, which is damned impressive. Debuted at the 1966 Turin Auto Show. It was designed by Tom Charda, which is spelled T-J-A-A-R-D-A, Tajarda, who was working for Pininfarina at the time. Mr. Chard is also known for designing the Pantera, among many other cars. It's a 2+2 cabriolet, sharing the engines and a lot of the running gear with the 124 sedan and the coupe. Although the sedan had a pushrod engine, the coupe and the Spider have a double overhead cam aluminum crossflow head. The engine was designed by Aurelio Lampredi, the ex-Ferrari engineer known for the famous Ferrari V12. Of note, it's the first mass-produced engine with a rubber timing belt. Everything was timing chains before then, and of course now we're back to timing chains now. It is an interference engine until they came out with the 2-liter version, so you do have to mind your timing belts. They have to be changed every 20,000 miles. The engine started out as a 1438cc engine with 89 horsepower and a carburetor, and it ended with a 2-liter engine, 101 horsepower and electronic fuel injected, although there were a couple turbo versions and supercharger versions. The suspension is unequal wishbones in front and a live axle with coil springs in the rear. Live axle also has a panhard rod and radius rods to control axle tramp. Brakes are 4-wheel power discs. Transmission is a 5-speed manual, although in 1979 they added a GM-sourced automatic. Now while they were making this, they were also making the X19, which is a true 2-seat sports car. But Fiat stopped both in 1983 and let the body manufacturers take over the manufacture of both of them, so this car became Pininfarina. Total output of the body style was almost 200,000, which is pretty darn impressive. Of course, in 1975 they added the dreaded big bar bumpers and smog equipment. In 1980 they added fuel injection by Bosch, which is apparently a very good unit. Problems? Well, it's a Fiat, so you're going to have rust issues, especially in the cars made after 1979, because apparently the quality of the steel dropped precipitously. The front suspension can be problematic. There is a cross member that bolts onto the chassis, and the bolts tend to become loose and are tricky to tighten. The bushings also wear out fairly quickly, so if you have unpredictable handling, look there first. The brake bleeder screws are notorious for corroding into the caliper, so when you try and loosen them, they break off. And there's lots of electrical issues, usually because of iffy grounding. The lights are fairly... Clocks are notorious for failing and tend to have cloudy lenses. Gas gauges are prone to failure. The dashboards are notorious for cracking, although you can get covers to try and cover that over. And the oil pan rides pretty low and is prone to denting, especially in the 2-liter engines. Apparently it hangs down quite far there. So, how hard is it to drop the convertible top? That's pretty easy. Okay, as you can see, it is a 2+2, although not a whole lot of leg room for the folks in the back. This is not an entirely stock interior. I think it's been reupholstered at some point, and it does have the cover on the dashboard and has a wood face. But otherwise you get the general feel for it. Being Italian, they do not skimp on the gauges. You get, of course, a gas gauge, speedo, water temperature, tachometer, and the aforementioned clock. This one actually does work. And then you get some warning lights, radio, speaker used to be down there. All in all, pretty simple but effective. Very nice gearbox. Up front, of course, you get the massively powerful double overhead cam 4-cylinder with the timing belt in the front, first one. Other than that, it's pretty darn straightforward. It probably had an air pump on this one at some point, which is long since gone. But that's the engine. In the back you get a very nice sized trunk. They put the battery in the back for weight distribution. There is actually a full-size spare under the floor of the trunk. Jack over on the side. But it really is quite a roomy space for a not particularly huge car. Just for completeness sake, I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not, but this is the view of the front suspension from the front end. This car does have new A-arms because the bushings were shot to hell. And I figure I'd do the ball joints too. But behind the oil pan is the famous cross brace. Okay, so the A-arms bolt to the cross brace, which goes behind the oil pan over to the other side, and you'll probably never be able to see them, but the bolts for the cross brace are somewhere up in there, and they are, yep, you can see one that's been double nutted there. Those are the ones that are prone to loosening, and they're not welded in place, so when you try and tighten them, the actual bolt will spin, so you're just sitting there spinning the nut and getting nowhere. It's possible to do it, but it's a pain in the ass. So that's the famous front suspension that you need to be careful about. So there's your intro to the Spider in a nutshell. It is a fun car to drive. Obviously not a ton of power, but enough to get you going. And the 2+2 part is a little iffy, but the seats are comfortable. Everybody complains about the gorilla driving position where you need long arms and short legs, but I do not find it to be a problem at all. It feels like a pretty normal driving position to me. Everybody seems to think it's an undervalued car, so who knows, maybe the values will start going up someday. Although I guess if they made 200,000 of them, that'll probably keep the values down a little bit. But great car, check it out sometime.